Magnetic data cassette drives were important devices. They helped early computers store information. These drives used magnetic tape. The tape was held inside a small plastic case. This case was known as a compact cassette. People could save their programs and data on these tapes. Then they could load them back into the computer later. This was a very useful function for computer users. It allowed for persistence of data beyond the computer's memory. This was a significant step for personal and small-scale computing. The compact cassette itself was invented in the 1960s. The Philips company in Europe developed it. Initially, its main purpose was for recording audio. People used cassettes to listen to music. The small size of the cassette made it very popular. It was portable and convenient to use. Soon, engineers realized its potential for storing digital data. Before cassettes, magnetic tape for data was usually on large, open reels. These were common in big computer centers. Cassettes brought tape technology to a smaller, more accessible scale. Early uses for data cassettes emerged quite quickly. They were not just for playing songs. Scientists and engineers found them useful. They used cassette recorders for data logging. Small instruments could record measurements onto tape. This was very helpful for experiments in laboratories. It was also good for collecting data in the field. Early microcomputers also started using cassettes. These computers needed an affordable way to store software. Cassettes provided a cheap and readily available solution. This helped make computers more accessible to more people. Cassettes offered several advantages over older methods. Large reel-to-reel tape systems were expensive. They were also too big for home or small office use. Punched cards and paper tape were other early forms of storage. However, they were very slow to read and write. They also could not hold very much information. Cassettes were a good middle ground. They were reusable, so users could save new information over old data. This made them very practical for everyday tasks. Their convenience helped spur the growth of personal computing. The popularity of cassette drives peaked in the 1970s and 1980s. These decades were a golden age for home computers. Many famous early personal computers relied heavily on cassettes. For example, the Apple II computer initially used cassette tapes for storage. The Radio Shack. TRS-80 was another very popular machine. It also used cassettes extensively. Commodore's PET computers and later the VIC-20 and Commodore 64 were strongly associated with cassette use. These machines brought computing power into homes, schools, and small businesses. Cassette drives were often essential peripherals, sometimes even built into the computer keyboard. There were several key reasons for this widespread adoption. Cost was the most significant factor. Audio cassette players were already common household items. Many early computer systems could use standard audio cassette recorders. This kept the entry price for a computer system low. The blank cassettes themselves were also very inexpensive. This affordability extended to software. Games and application programs were distributed on cassettes. People could easily buy, share, and even copy these programs. This accessibility greatly contributed to the home computer revolution. It democratized software distribution in a new way. Several notable models of cassette drives became well known. The Commodore dataset Model C2N is perhaps the most iconic. It was specifically designed for Commodore computers like the PET, VIC-20 and C64. Its distinctive design is remembered by many users from that era. Other computer manufacturers also produced their own dedicated data cassette drives. For instance, Atari had its own line of cassette recorders for its 8-bit computers. Many users, however, simply connected standard portable audio cassette recorders. The quality and reliability of these standard recorders could vary significantly, but they all performed the basic task of loading and saving programs. The user experience with cassettes had both highs and lows. Loading a program from a cassette was often a very slow process. It could take several minutes for a single game or application to load. During this time, users would often hear loud screeching sounds from the speaker. These sounds were actually the digital data being translated into audio tones. Sometimes the loading process would fail. This could happen due to tape damage, incorrect volume levels, or a misaligned tape head. This was a common source of frustration. Despite these challenges, cassettes were vital. They provided the primary means of software access for millions of early computer enthusiasts. Cassette tapes played a crucial role in introducing personal data storage to the masses. For many individuals, using a cassette drive with their home computer was their first interaction with digital storage. They learned the basic concepts of loading programs and saving their own files. This experience was an important educational aspect of early personal computing. It helped prepare a generation of users for more advanced storage technologies that would follow. The idea of removable media, something you could hold and physically manage, became familiar. People became accustomed to handling their own data directly. This represented a fundamental shift in how individuals interacted with information technology. The inherent limitations of cassette storage also spurred innovation. The slow speed of data transfer was a significant drawback. Waiting many minutes for a program to load tested users' patience. Unreliability was another major concern. Tapes could get tangled or worn out. Data could be lost if the recording quality was poor. These frustrations created a strong demand for better storage solutions. This demand helped drive the development and adoption of floppy disk drives. Floppy disks offered much faster access times. They were also generally more reliable than cassettes. Cassettes effectively demonstrated both the utility of personal storage and the pressing need for improvement. Standardization, or the lack thereof, presented challenges. Different computer systems often use different methods for recording data onto cassettes. This meant that a program tape from one type of computer, like a Sinclair ZX Spectrum, would usually not work on another, like an Apple II. This incompatibility was a common issue for users. Some companies and enthusiasts developed special turbo loader programs. These clever utilities tried to speed up the loading process from cassettes. They also sometimes improved reliability. These innovations showcased ingenious programming. However, a universal data format for cassettes across all platforms never truly materialized. The characteristics of cassette storage also influenced software design and distribution. Programmers had to work within strict limitations. The storage capacity of a typical cassette was relatively small. Games and applications needed to be compact. Developers became very skilled at optimizing code and data. They learned to squeeze impressive functionality into limited memory and storage space. The sequential nature of tape access was another constraint. Data was read from the beginning of the tape to the end. This influenced how programs were structured and how data was organized. Despite these hurdles, software distribution on cassette was cheap, enabling a vibrant market for games and utilities. The decline of cassette drives as primary computer storage was gradual but inevitable. Floppy disk drives started to become more affordable by the mid-1980s. By the latter part of that decade, they were becoming standard equipment. Floppy disks offered significant advantages. They were much faster for loading and saving data. They could hold considerably more information than a typical cassette. They were also generally more reliable in day-to-day use. New computer models increasingly included built-in floppy disk drives. This convenience signaled the beginning of the end for the widespread use of cassettes in mainstream personal computing. Users eagerly adopted the superior floppy disk technology. However, cassettes did not vanish from the computing scene immediately. Some very low-cost home computer systems continued to use them into the early 1990s. This was especially true in certain regions or for entry-level machines. Cassettes also found a niche use for data backup for a time. Their low media cost made them attractive for archiving large amounts of data, even if access was slow. Some specialized industrial control systems and data loggers also continued to use magnetic tape in cassette form. Their simplicity and robustness in certain environments kept them relevant in these specific applications. But their era as the primary storage medium for personal computers was clearly over. Today, data cassette drives are an important part of computing history. For many people who grew up in the 1970s and 1980s, they evoke a strong sense of nostalgia. Museums that exhibit early personal computers often feature these cassette drives prominently. They represent a critical early phase in the evolution of digital technology. They remind us how quickly technology changes and improves. The challenges of using cassettes, like the long loading times and the distinctive sounds, are often remembered with a mixture of frustration and fondness. The excitement of loading a new game or program from tape is a key part of their lasting legacy. The experience with cassette data storage taught valuable lessons. Cassettes underscored the critical importance of affordable storage solutions. They were instrumental in making personal computing accessible to a broad audience. The limitations of cassettes also fueled the relentless drive for technological advancement. The industry constantly pushed towards greater storage capacity. It also strived for faster access speeds and improved reliability. The journey from the humble data cassette to today's sophisticated solid-state drives and cloud storage shows remarkable progress. The simple cassette played its necessary and foundational part in this ongoing evolution of information technology.